Hey guys, welcome back. Another episode of the Cask Mates. Today we are joined by my fiancée Marissa.
Hello.
Our good friends from Crowded Barrel Distillery join us, Josh and Gretchen Galladay.
Howdy.
Hey.
And my editor-in-chief, Mike behind the mic, 3-star General Mike.
Always.
And I'm your host and moderator, Jason. I'm here every week. Today we're going to be talking about the Texas Whiskey Association and the Texas Whiskey Trail. That's why we've invited Josh and Gretchen, because they are heavily involved in both. And we figured we'd try some Texas whiskeys as well to mark the occasion. First off, we have the Balcones Texas Single Malt. This is the Total Wine barrel pick, so it's pretty dark.
Yeah, and this is the Total Wine barrel picks I've had before are actually lower proof than this. I think this is up 53. There. Yeah, I've had ones that are.
Yeah,
I feel like I've had ones that are a bit lower, and this is a American.
The other one they had was the 46.
Yeah. This is all the single barrel picks I've seen so far have actually been American oak too. Which,
yes.
In the main release they've got American oak, European oak, a little bit of French oaks in there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool to see.
There's no French oak at Balcones this year, is there?
No, as far as a French oak release, no.
Okay.
They've always got some barrels, I think, running, but
back,
I don't think they're coming out with the actual Froke this year.
Okay, all right.
The Froke.
Yeah.
That's funny.
The French oak. So on the nose on this one, I get the honey pears, the baked apples for sure, vanilla. Mm-hmm. It's a dusty corn. Like, even though it's 100% barley, you get that kind of dusty corn kind of...
You know what's a really interesting tasting note I've heard from Scott at Scotch Test Dummies is in Balcones and actually in a lot of other Texas whiskeys, he always describes it as a sagebrush kind of note.
Okay.
Like, so it's kind of along the lines to me of dusty corn, but also a little bit sort of herbal and woody at the same time.
Okay.
So
I get that. Let's go ahead and try it, guys. Salud.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, it's pretty classic Balcones Single Malt, man.
Yeah. I get a little touch of banana on the Total Wine barrel pick, along with some cinnamon and clove, the toasted cereal, since it's all, barley and grain.
Yeah, it's nice and spicy.
Yeah.
Classic high proof bourbon.
Yeah. And when we get towards the end, we've got one that's very high proof. Yeah.
Yeah,
we're going heavy today.
Yeah. You bring in the heavy hitters at the end, I think.
Yeah. Some Brimstone, some Cowboy from Garrison. We got some heavy hitters down the road here.
Yeah, this is your first time trying the Brimstone here in a bit, isn't it?
Yes, I've never had the Brimstone. I've heard lots of good things. One of the MBs on the Facebook, she traded me a bottle of the Ardbeg Drum for a bottle of the Brimstone.
Really?
Because she's in Pennsylvania, she just can't get it. And I was like, I'll go buy it. I mean, I was like, are you sure you don't want anything else? And she was like, I know it's not dollar amount, but I'm good because I've been wanting to try it. Send me a bottle of that, you're good.
Dude, that sounds like a hell of a deal right there.
Exactly. So I'm going to send her a bottle. I'm going to do the Brimstone, and I'm going to send a bottle of the Wyoming Alliance.
Oh, nice.
Crowded Barrel. I'm just going to throw that in. I was like, well, here you go. Like, that makes it a little more dollar for dollar.
That's cool. That's cool. That and the Ironroot Alliance are just now coming out from them, right?
She traded me a bottle of the Wiggle Oaxacan Rye, which I gave to the Vault.
Oh, cool.
For a bottle of Chapter 7 Eleanor.
Nice.
So we've already done the shipping dance once. So, tell me, if you will, a little bit about the Texas Whiskey Association and y'all's involvement with it.
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, I don't technically work for...
you're not. You don't work.
I am not an employee. I don't, officially represent them or anything like that. I've helped out Spencer Whelan, Sarah Whelan, and the folks that actually do run Texas Whiskey Association and the Texas Whiskey Trail as well. So we've gone and helped out with some events and done some social media stuff for them. And
you wrote all the introductories for the websites.
Yeah, I wrote profiles of most of the member distilleries. A few folks after I did that work, but they had a few like MKT joined on and a few other Lone Elm or 4 Points Distilling that makes Lone Elm.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually write those. Those kind of came after the fact, but the majority of the profiles on their website was my work. And I wrote a blog post just about Texas whiskey in general and what I like about it. So yeah, we continue to be involved with them, and we have an event coming up this week, and they're going to be at the Texas Whiskey Festival that's coming up.
They're actually going to be at the Houston social,
Houston Whiskey Social as
They're going to have
well.
a table there, yeah. For anybody that's going.
I don't know if it got worked out yet or not, but I think they're going to have a Texas whiskey room. Like after they do a Buffalo Trace tasting or something like that, they're going to move everything aside and have just Texas whiskey exhibited in one
What
of
if
the
they're going
conference
to bring
rooms.
any of the Weller 114?
Oh, probably.
We might need to get
Probably.
tickets for that.
I hear. I haven't been yet, but I hear that's the biggest just broad whiskey event in Texas. Is the Houston Whiskey Social.
Yeah.
Coming up at the end of March, $135 a ticket.
Yeah.
Get them now.
Yeah, and the Texas Whiskey Festival is the same, but if you're a member of the Texas Whiskey Trail, you get 15% off.
Yep.
If you join before April 19th, y'all.
Yep.
Right,
And the plan right now is for us to be there and be helping out with whatever Spencer and his folks need. So come out, we'll see you there.
Yeah, TexasWhiskeyTrail.com.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Check us
absolutely.
out.
And so on the Texas Whiskey Trail, they're having join now before April 19th. You get 15% off, and we'll just roughly go through a list of who's on there. Right now there are 12, but we have 2 more talking about joining. Right now there's Ironroot, Deep Ellum, 5 Points, Balcones, MKT, Crowded Barrel, which is where I met Josh and Gretchen,
Yep.
Still, Andalusia, Real Spirits, Ranger Creek, Garrison Brothers, and Treaty Oak. And then they're also in talks with Ben Milam and TX Blended to join.
Firestone Roberts, yep.
Yeah.
Firestone
Absolutely,
Roberts, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful property.
Yeah, that place
Yeah.
is pretty amazing. If you go visit, it's beautiful. And I mean,
Yeah,
if
it
you
rivals Garrison Brothers as far as like Texas Hill Country,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
beauty, you know.
Any place you have to check in at a guard tower to get in to go to
Yeah.
the distillery,
You know it's pretty fancy.
You know it's going to be a great place, and you're going to
Yeah.
get some great stuff. So.
Exactly.
And I mean that list, man. I mean, like in Texas whiskey world, that's a lot of the heavy hitters, right?
Yeah,
Those are
that's-
the big names, and they're all together in one association. So if you think about going to, is it $55 right now if you buy a membership?
Yeah.
And if you go and hit up 3 of those places, do a tour, etc., not to mention all the other benefits you would get as a member. I mean, it kind of pays for itself, to be
Oh,
honest.
absolutely.
You get like a T-shirt and a glass. And
Right now, you get a personalized membership card, an official certified Texas whiskey tasting glass, a Texas Whiskey Trail T-shirt, a free standard tour at all Texas Whiskey Trail member distilleries, 15% off Texas Whiskey Festival tickets, and as a caveat, bragging rights forever.
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 Yeah, get on that train early.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the way it's been explained to me is there will be additional benefits kind of on a distillery by distillery basis. You know, they will be
I think they
able...
were talking about doing like certain blends that you can only buy like if you're a Texas distillery.
Right. So, and then it's important to... Membership doesn't ever get you whiskey per se.
No.
Right? You get access to the distillery. You get
Yes.
access to certain benefits, and that might be, you know, if you go in the fall to Ironroot, they might have a special bottling that they put together that if you want the chance to purchase it from them, you have to be a member.
Yeah.
That's just an example. You know, that
Yeah.
that could be, that would change over time and depend on the distillery as to what they want to offer. So those kind of core benefits of a free
I know
tour.
that Crowded Barrel is working on a Texas Whiskey Association with Ironroot, right?
Yeah, so they have the Ironroot. It's kind of like a single barrel pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's just come out. I think they just released that to the Patreon members today, and they're doing a blended whiskey for the Texas Whiskey Festival. That's part Ironroot Hubris, I believe. Part Balcones, I think Mirador,
Yeah, it's Mirador.
and then also some Andalusia Striker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to mix all those together and come up with a blend, and I'm curious just to try that. So
Yeah, that sounds exciting. And those are my 3 personal favorite distilleries and some of my favorite whiskey from those distilleries. So to see them come together would be really cool.
yeah, and all of these distilleries do different things extremely well. Like Treaty Oak, when you go out there, they're not open very much. They're only open, I believe, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Sunday they're open during the day, but Friday and Saturday they're only open like 4 to 9. But on Saturday they have a restaurant attached to the distillery, and you can actually go and take a course on how to cook brisket.
Yeah, isn't that
It's-
their food is always pretty
Their
awesome
food
there.
is it's legit, like good Texas barbecue. I mean, you would think that, with them being so close to, Salt Lake and some other places, but their food rival. I worked at Salt Lake for 3 years. It's just a destination.
You worked at the Salt Lake for 3 years?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's not all that great. Yeah. So when I went to Hayes High School.
Okay.
And you either worked at HEB, the Hayes Employment Bureau, or you worked at Salt Lake.
Right, I see.
It was a rite of passage.
Those
you either
are
worked at Salt Lake or you worked at HEB because it was the only place around here.
Yeah.
At the time for employment as a kid.
Yeah, those are your high school employment
Yeah,
options.
there was no Target, there was no Walmart, there was
You didn't have a movie theater?
No, God.
had nothing.
Evil opened in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I
not
needed
just
a
like
job
a
in
local two-screen something.
No,
Come
I
on.
needed a job in 1982.
They still had movie theaters in 92.
Just not in Kyle and Butte.
Yeah.
Just not
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, all right.
Balcones, you know all about Balcones and what they do. I'll let you talk a little bit about them because they're your hands down favorite.
Yeah, I mean,
We're all kind of all decked out in Balcones. We've got
I am,
the coat and the jacket and your
Yeah, this is
10th
my
anniversary
Balcones
shirt.
10th anniversary party shirt.
I was betting that you would show up in the Texas Whiskey Trail shirts. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been
Those are on the laundry. Sorry, Spencer.
we've been wearing those out as well. I mean, what can you say about Balcones? They were the first Texas whiskey since Prohibition. Right, was Baby Blue, and shortly thereafter, the first bourbon, of course, Garrison Brothers.
Yeah.
And
I found a bottle of the Young Gun.
wow,
On eBay
yeah,
a week ago. That one bottle of Young Gun's going for $5,000.
no kidding.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Balcones, I think, is among the more sort of artistic, creative. They do things that are pretty outside the box, things that most people don't even try and do, like what you're pouring right now, Brimstone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of smoked whiskey out there in the world, but there's not an awful lot of blue corn-based oak smoked whiskey.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I took a
So
little
yesterday,
sniff of it.
I went to the happy hour at Crowded Barrel, and I got to meet the creator of Discord.
Oh,
Was
wow.
there.
Cool.
And he wants to do something with the tribe where Patreon members can do like a Discord and like a Ask Rex and Daniel anything
Oh, nice.
kind of thing. So he was setting that up. But he went to Balcones, and the tour guide, he was going to buy a bottle, and the tour guide told him that's the only thing we make that I won't drink.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things that's like, I have a feeling, just by smelling it, I can already tell she's going to be like, oh no, hell no. But me,
So I keep
I
waiting.
smell it and I'm like, yes, hell yes. So
I keep waiting to get some like backlash from somebody on this, but I keep calling it the Texas Octomore.
yeah, it's
Not that it tastes anything like Octomore,
no,
right?
it
But
doesn't
it's
taste like anything like Octomore, but
it's just that kind of
punch you in the face.
unusual.
Yeah, it's
and,
there.
and like it's far out, right? Its smoke profile makes it into a little bit of a cult whiskey. It's kind of a
Yeah.
love it or hate it thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm nervous.
I think we have some love and some hate going on in this one right now. That said, it's I think a lot of people blow up Brimstone to be something more aggressive than it is, and there's a lot of it's powerful in the smoke.
I've heard it
profile.
described as like Texas barbecue in a glass. I'm tasting it. It's got definitely a smoked, like burnt in, meaty kind of chewiness to it.
Yeah.
But it's not at all aggressive.
No,
It's not punch you in the face.
because it's a corn whiskey, and blue corn to me always tastes a little bit more earthy than say a yellow
Yeah.
corn whiskey.
Yeah.
But still, it has a lot of kind of molasses sweetness behind the smoke as well. So
No, I'm sad I sent my bottle of that to Nicole. I'm going to have to go grab another bottle.
well, fortunately for us, you can find Brimstone all day
Brimstone
long.
is everywhere. Like Total Wine, it practically falls off the shelf along with all the other Balcones.
Okay, I'm pleasantly surprised. I actually really, really like it.
Ah,
I actually really, really like it.
Balcones
Yeah.
tasting hours in their room are.
Yeah, I've been wanting to go to one of their they have like master cocktail classes where they teach you how to make cocktails. I've been meaning to go. We haven't been yet, but it's definitely on our list of like places to go and
I've been a
see and do. You've been probably several hundred times.
few times. Yeah, maybe,
every month.
every month.
Actually, the coolest thing they're doing right now, you mentioned the master cocktail classes. They're
Yeah.
just doing they're just calling it master classes.
Yeah.
So I'm personally, I went to a few last year. I missed one of them, and I signed up for all 4 again this year because they're so interesting and such a good time.
Yeah.
You get to spend time with Jared Hemstead. He's a master distiller
Yeah.
there. Gabe and Tommy and those guys, depending on who's running the class that day. And they tell you about how they distill stuff, how they mature stuff, etc. You get to go through the final class of the year is the blending class. So
you get to blend your own little...
get to play around with different barrel samples and stuff like that, and make your own custom blend of Balcones Single Malt whiskey. And I'm still waiting. They had this issue. They need to get all the labels approved and all that stuff. But
of course, TTB has to have their say.
Yep,
The
exactly.
government shutdown.
Government shutdown delayed that
Oh,
and all that. But sometime here pretty soon, I should be able to pick up 2 bottles of my own custom, unique to me Balcones Single Malt
I'll
blend.
be waiting
Nice.
for a airplane-sized bottle of that. All right, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. No, this one's actually it's rather like a sweet barbecue.
Yeah,
it really
it's
is,
almost
yeah.
like
It's got a
I
little.
was surprised by the upfront sweetness of it before
Yeah.
it got.
You get the pepper on the back end,
Yeah.
but right up front, you get chugging some sweet barbecue sauce.
And for the whiskey wives, because I have my whiskey wife shirt on today, they actually make really great cocktails at the bar. For me, a lot of Balcones, won't say all of them, are challenging for me to drink neat. I'm a Scotch drinker.
Yeah.
And so they do an amazing job at the bar being able to put like lavender. One of my favorite drinks is I forgot the name of it, but they put like lavender in there, and it's amazing. And I can sit there and drink that for a good chunk of the day and be happy.
My personal favorite, actually, and we don't have any here today, but they make a Texas rye that's super unique. I think it to me it tastes all chocolate and orange, which is not.
So it's like the candies you get at Christmas, like the
Exactly.
It looks like an orange.
Yeah, where you
with
like break
chocolate
it.
and you break it in 8 equal pieces. Okay, all right.
So they do a dark chocolate old fashioned with that rye as the spirit in there, and then dark chocolate bitters that I think they make in house.
Okay.
And it's incredible. That's a fantastic cocktail.
My
there.
only request, and if Winston or anybody at Balcones, Jared, Gabe, if you're listening, make some chocolates for the love of God. Get
Oh, that would be
whiskey
that would be
chocolate.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would
for sure.
Garrison Brothers does it. Andalusia
Yeah.
pairs up with a chocolatier out of Fredericksburg. If you had a chocolatier, man, I would love you Balcones even more.
Yeah, I
On the record.
believe Donna said that the high rye from Garrison was going to be late this fall or early next year.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that.
They've been aging their rye for about 4 years now.
Nice.
And Donna said the last time we were out there, Donna said it's very, very close. It's very close. So yeah, and I like rye. A lot of people don't like rye. I like rye. I'm a big rye guy. I love to make old fashions. It's one of my favorite cocktails. Yeah, I love rye. So I'm really looking forward to the Garrison Brothers High Rye.
So then you're a rye old fashioned guy and not bourbon then. Typically.
I don't prefer bourbon in my old fashions. I prefer rye.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big.
I feel like the rye like stands up to the.
Yeah, the rye stands up to the bitters and the simple syrup and whatever else you're doing. Currently, my favorite drink in all of Austin is the breakfast old fashioned at Eberly.
Ooh, I haven't had that.
Yeah, it's Old Forester 1920 with walnut bitters,
Oh, interesting.
and then the simple syrup and the orange and the cherry. But yeah, it's a wonderful. And you can have it at 8:00 at 11:00 in the morning.
That's the way to start off a brunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a way to start off a brunch in Austin.
Shout out to Eberly. The savory scones they have it's worth a trip alone.
Very cool.
It's a bacon cheddar chive scone. It's so good.
That sounds
Yeah,
delicious.
it's wonderful.
You're making me hungry. We didn't even.
Yeah.
We kind of rushed over here and hadn't
Yeah.
even eaten breakfast yet.
So we're gonna try some Ironroot.
Yes.
So I haven't been to these guys either. So tell me a little bit about what they do. I've heard a lot about Icarus and Hubris and God whiskey over there.
Yeah.
And they're getting ready to
So-
release a new one that we actually shared on our Facebook page yesterday for our YouTube channel. That they're getting ready to release another
bottling of Icarus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just real quickly, we don't have that here today, but Icarus
Yeah.
is corn whiskey that is finished in port and ex-Isla peated casks. So
okay.
isn't that like let's take a corn whiskey and treat it like a scotch?
Yeah.
And what happens? And I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
But what
I'm all about Isla. Like
yeah.
when we first started this podcast, it was all like bourbon. Like
Really?
that's what we like decided it was going to be like right off, and then I quickly learned that most of my guys and her, there's just not a whole lot of bourbons that they really cared for. So I branched out, and now we're pretty much like all spirits, but mainly whiskey and a lot of scotch. Like we're branching out into scotch, and I find that you kind of like Pete, but Tim's the big Pete head. She's not
Tim
a
is the
big
Pete
fan
head.
of Pete. She's okay with Pete sometimes.
It's growing on me.
It's growing.
Sure,
on me. Yeah,
sure.
He's the higher proof, the
I am.
better. We
Yeah.
did 17.
You're the barrel proof bourbon guy.
We
I
did
am.
1790.
Right
We did 1792 full proof, and this fool finished a fourth of a bottle. I was like, "Are you okay to try?" And he was like, "I'm going to sit here for the while."
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, sleep that off.
Yeah, but I love Isla. I like pretty much. I think the one I prefer the least is Space Eggs. I think I'll find them they're okay, but they're not my preferred.
Sure, like just generally speaking,
Yeah.
their typical style. Yeah.
I much prefer a Lefroy Ardbeg, something like that.
Right. Well, what we have here is the Ironroot Harbinger. I was actually just up there 2 days ago.
Okay.
I was in Dallas for work, and had to stop up and see Robert.
Had to.
Yeah, wound up spending the night because he had to.
It wasn't a choice. Yeah, I did end up spending the night up there, but Robert and Jonathan Licorice run the place, along with Mom and Dad are also very involved. They call Marsha Licorice the first Mother of Texas
Mother of
Whiskey. I was
Texas
going to
Whiskey.
say
Mother of
First
Texas
Lacey.
She has an Instagram account and a Facebook page.
Mother
now.
of Texas Whiskey.
Really? Oh, I have to go follow them right now. Yeah.
I
Go.
love Mama Marsha.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so we tried a bunch of stuff, but so this is their Harbinger bourbon, and it comes in 2 flavors, right? This is the nearly cask strength variety. They chose to put all of their higher proof ones at 115. So if it doesn't come out of the cask exactly at 115, then so it can't be labeled cask strength technically, but it essentially is, may as well be. And then there's, I think, is a 95 proof Harbinger XC.
So not.
That's a little more intended, bar friendly, make cocktails with it, stuff like that. And this is more for the whiskey nerd to sip neat, right? So this is, to me, of their 2 main bourbons, the other one being Promethean. This one's a little bit fruitier, a little bit
I was about to say,
sweeter.
I get a lot of baked fruit.
Yeah, berry type notes in there, I find as well. So.
Oh yeah, this is good as well. This is
So one of the
pleasantly surprised.
One of the cool and unique things about Ironroot that we found when we were up there for our YouTube show, we actually did a 3-part series while we were up there. Meant to be up there for 2 hours and run up there for 6.5 hours. Had an amazing time. I can't wait to go back.
Yeah.
They do a thing called an evolution barrel, which was something unique that we had never heard of at any distillery, where you can buy a barrel for them, and every certain time period they'll take a third of that, bottle it, then another certain period of time do another third, and then at the end of it then you get the bottom third, and then so you kind of get the air, and then if you want to proof it down, but I think most people do it cask.
I mean, it's essentially like doing a single barrel pick, right?
Yeah.
But you do it progressively over time, so you see
how it ages.
Yeah,
how it first run, second run, third run.
So not only absolutely right how it ages, but you also get, as they empty a third of it and then another third of it, you get a greater headspace in the barrel, so it oxidizes more. You get more of those rounded. That to me actually stands out about Ironroot whiskey in general. Is it's kind of rounded off, and the edges are kind of chopped off. Whereas a lot of
there's
Texas,
no spiky, medley, briny notes here.
Exactly.
It's all very well. It's pretty.
It's pretty.
It's very pretty.
It's pretty, but it has nice complexity to it.
Yes.
So they learned a lot of their approach and techniques to distilling and maturation from studying in France under cognac and brandy distillers.
Right.
So they use a lot of those techniques to create whiskey in Texas, and part of their whole philosophy is because things age so quickly here because of the environment and the heat and all of that, they want to slow things down. So where a lot of distilleries are using smaller barrels, and Garrison Brothers in particular, using some smaller barrels than average, and they've really learned how to leverage that into a unique flavor profile and really make it work. They kind of take the opposite approach of they've always used larger barrels, even greater than 55 gallon. They have, I think, a couple of 70 gallon enormous barrels there.
Wow.
So they're trying to slow that process down, give things time to kind of oxidize and age out a little bit longer, so they have a little different flavor profile. than most, and I think they're doing an amazing job.
And anybody can do the evolution barrel. Actually, Josh, when we were there, he found a barrel that he loved that if he could have, and I would have let him, he would have taken it home that day.
So
so as part of the show, we were able to say, hey, does anybody want to, if we did this, what do you guys think? And we did it.
Josh, I was one of the people when
Yeah.
I was like, I'm down for a couple of bottles. Yeah, let's go. Send them to go.
So speaking of, is there an empty glass in here somewhere?
I don't.
There is not.
There isn't.
Well, I can empty mine real quick. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, empty by mean you drink the rest of that. Okay, that's okay.
So I have very little of this because in order to do a single barrel pick, I have to partner with a liquor store. So I found Oak Liquor Cabinet in North Austin was willing to buy the barrel
By the way,
pick.
guys, that's TBC law. If you go and pick a barrel, they bottle them and then sell all the bottles to a liquor store. You can't literally go to anywhere, pick a barrel, and they load the barrel up in the back of your truck and you bring it home. That's not how it works
Right.
here in Texas at all.
So I have a very little bit of this that I need to bring a little sample up to Oak Liquor Cabinet for them to try because he brought it. He bought the barrel just on trust alone. It wasn't able to try it yet. So I brought when I was up at Ironroot, Robert was kind enough to grab a little sample of it and pour me a little bit. But if you want to try.
Yeah.
The single barrel pick is going to be labeled as Harbinger, but you can see how different just this individual barrel that I selected is from the regular bottling.
Okay.
So I was actually rather surprised. It had really the original Harbinger has the fruity notes and everything. It has a strong spice when you first drink it, right on the tongue,
like baking spices.
Yeah, yeah. It was much different from what you're expecting with the smell of it.
So I'm curious what you think about this because this
smells more on the nose. It smells more cakey. It's got a cakey profile when you smell that.
So Harbinger gets blended from different barrels that have one thing they do is they'll base a lot of their mash bill on a platform of yellow corn, and then they'll use other heirloom corns as a flavor accent. So they use Magic Mana corn, Bloody Butcher corn, Green Oaxacan corn. They mix those in there and they'll age them in separate barrels, and then they put together a regular release like Harbinger and they'll take bits of those barrels and blend them together. This guy right here is specifically Bloody Butcher corn.
And
it smelled like frosting.
That's magical. Yeah, that's really
And Rex
good.
mooched out of our barrel when they were there.
Rex keeps joking with me that he stole my barrel and then he took all the whiskey and refilled it with Big Red soda.
Yeah.
It tastes like frosting too.
Yeah, it's got that.
It's delicious.
It's really good. Yeah, I'm excited about. Man, you let that age for a while, and when you get down to that third run, that's going to be fantastic.
And what's interesting about Ironroot, when we were up there, they were telling us, because they're almost at the Oklahoma border. I mean, they're about 3.5 hours from where we live in North Austin. They get all of the atmospheric pressures and climate from Lake Texoma nearby. And then they had, when we were up there like 2 months ago, they had a snowstorm like 3 days before we were there. And so they get all that different weather that not the rest of the Texas distilleries get because they are so far north.
Yeah.
And with Lake Texoma and the Oklahoma border. So I think what they're doing is pretty unique. And they're explaining to us, Mama Marsha was explaining to us about terroir and how that really influences what they do up there.
Yeah, if you think about it, I mean, Texas is much bigger than Scotland is, and Scotland has regions with huge regional differences between them,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And so something that's aged at Garrison Brothers versus Balcones versus Ironroot, you've got different climate, even though it's all still Texas, and so it's going to mature differently.
Dan was saying something a week or two ago about when they had that freak, cold snap. It was like it was 70 one day, then that night it was 29, then the day it was 55, and then that night it was 24.
Wild swings.
And then the next day it was 70. He was like, I actually had 8 or 10 barrels break.
Yeah.
They're
those
so
damn angels.
expanded.
They're so greedy.
The moving in and out and the stress on the wood it puts, you would be amazed at how quickly it can
Yeah, if I remember right.
change. And when you go through that, I mean, the normal evaporation, the normal angel share in Texas, in Kentucky it's 2 to 4%. Here it's 12 to 14% a year.
Right.
So if you age something in Texas for 23 years, you may have like 4 bottles.
Right, and that's
a 53-gallon barrel. It's like, why? It's going to be like $1,000 a bottle. and it's going to taste like an oak stave.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to want that.
We probably
Some of this stuff
why.
already gets as dark as coffee.
Yeah.
I'd still buy a bottle if I had the means. Why not? It's like
Just to say you had it.
who's really going to try this?
Yeah, and that's
So-
whenever I talk to whiskey people and get them to try some Texas stuff. That's a common question. People will look at me skeptically and say, "Well, but how old is it?"
Yeah.
And I'll say, "You're looking at it wrong.
Right.
Don't
Yeah.
expect it to be Buffalo Trace. You're
Yeah.
not going to get that here.
No.
That's a different deal entirely, right?" So, you kind of have to reframe, especially if you're used to the way that Kentucky bourbon works and what's a good age statement there.
Yeah.
Texas is a different story.
Yeah, there's a reason why Jim Murray of the Whiskey Bible used to carry a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle 23 when he was talking about aging. Now he carries a bottle of 4-year-old Garrison Brothers Cowboy. That's what he carries in his bag. And he was like, they only need 4 years.
Yep.
Like, it's so hot and then cold. It's like they don't have... The climate is completely different. There's no way that you could age something in Texas for 23 years.
Yeah, exactly. Age is only a part of the picture, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think also over the last 3-4 years, the Texas distilleries have really learned a lot and adapted to figuring out what type of whiskey this place wants to make.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to force it to be Pappy or
No.
George T. Stagg or
Or
Elijah
MRT
Craig.
Or anything. No.
You're not going to get
No.
that here, and
No, you're
so
not going to get something soft and pretty like Bland's or anything. It's not that kind of environment. It's not that kind of terroir.
exactly.
They don't grow the kind of corn and wheat and everything else that you need.
So instead of fighting it, folks like Ironroot and Balcones is starting to do a lot of things differently than they
Yeah.
did years ago, and
Yeah.
it's figuring out how to deal with what we've got here and make the best of it rather
Yeah.
than trying to imitate something else.
Yeah,
Right. So this next one,
I believe
we've got-
I believe Dan had said the last time I went that he had finally found somebody because he was buying his wheat from a farmer in Canada that they knew because it just doesn't really grow here, but they found some kind of other kind of wheat that does grow here. So I think they had finally been in talks to where they could purchase wheat here as well. Because
Yeah.
everything else they purchase, they use 100% food grain white corn from the Panhandle, their grain and stuff like that. So it's just, if you can get it here, if it can be grown here, they're going to use it.
Yeah, the agricultural angle is important to a lot of these guys. Like
Yeah.
I know, for example, we just poured this Andalusia whiskey company, their peated single malt called Revenant Oak, and this was a special release that was finished in port barrels, tawny port barrels.
Okay.
So this tawny port and there's ruby port.
Yes.
And tawny is the drier.
Tawny is the
Yes.
drier, more alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah. Higher proof, if you will.
The better one.
The one that's not so desserty.
It actually is.
I don't
Yeah.
care for ruby port, but I do like some tonic.
Yeah. I gifted Daniel a bottle of the Starlight, the rye, the first donation I ever made. And he had mentioned that he liked port. Mm-hmm. And so my parents brought back some port, and he was like, is it ruby or tawny? And I was like, it's ruby. And he was like,
Yeah.
I really prefer tawny. I was like, well, I don't make a tawny, so I'll keep and drink it myself. Like, I like it. It's gonna be good. Like, no problem. But yeah, a lot of people prefer tawny. I'm okay with pretty much just about any port. I really like port.
That's something I've been wanting to, just in learning more about whiskey is you have so much stuff that's aged in sherry and port and all these other things, Madeira, etc. Right? So, and I have an idea and I've tried a few of those things, but I need to learn more about them
If
to
you want to know
understand
how,
more.
if you really want to know how port affects whiskey, you get a bottle of port and they make tongues where you can put them over a campfire and you get them red hot and you singe the top off. And if you pour the wine, pour the port like you would a wine, and you twist the bottle at the end, you get all the sediment.
Oh wow!
You take that sediment and you spread it on a cracker. That's literally where the word toast came from.
That's wow.
That's it. We know what we're doing tomorrow.
So actually, you can't buy port in the state of Texas on Sunday if it's over 14% alcohol.
We could buy it
Right.
today and
You
then
buy it
can't
today.
fire it tomorrow.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, then there's a lot of
That's a cool story.
There's a lot of things on Facebook and Amazon that people want to turn their beer bottles and wine bottles into like candles. So it's just a tool.
Yeah,
It's the same
yeah.
tool, but if you don't want to cut it, if you want to sear it, you can stick it in a campfire, get it red hot, and then just barely turn it, and it'll come right off.
Right. Interesting.
And then we
Yeah,
can
that's
make
cool.
whiskey candles.
Yeah, so you can make whiskey or port candles. Yeah.
So
The sediment at the bottom of that is really the base of what's left in the barrel that they
Sure,
store.
yeah, that's
you
what the
put-
whiskey's going to interact with mostly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So what do you guys think of this one?
I haven't tried it yet. I've just been nosing it. On the nose, it's almost like Lefroy Light.
Oh yeah, it's not heavily
It's
peated.
like,
But I would encourage you at some point to toss just a tiny bit of water in here, and it does that
okay,
cool
I'm
thing.
gonna try it.
Yeah, it does that cool thing where the peat comes out, like it becomes 50% more, right, with a tiny bit of water.
What's interesting for Andalusia,
Oh, I like
we just went out and actually interviewed them for our YouTube show a couple weeks ago, and they actually are a sustainable farm. So all of their spent grains they actually give them to the cattle in the back. It's the distillery is actually on a
Awesome.
family
That's
farm,
awesome.
and they use all Texas rainwater. They have
Yep.
a huge rain catchment system, and so all of their whiskey is made, and all of their spirits are made with.
Yeah, he said.
Rainwater.
He said so far they haven't had to supplement at all with city
Yeah,
water.
I
They've
remember.
been
I remember
able-
even Garrison Brothers. They do a lot of rainwater, but it's not complete.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all of their waste, they have one of their guys. They feed all the sludge from it goes to the cattle.
Yeah.
They have,
Balcones does the same
They
thing,
have 2 or
yeah.
3 people that come and it's excellent feed for cattle.
Right,
So
right.
it's like why dump it? Why let it go to waste?
Because all the sugar has
Yeah.
been stripped out as food for yeast to make
Yeah,
whiskey,
exactly.
right? But you have this fiber, a little bit of fat, some protein, and stuff left over. It works great for livestock, so that's a cool thing.
What was interesting, Ty Phillips, who was amazing enough to let us interview him and take up his Sunday afternoon, he let us go into the what is that shed that was burnt? I can't think of what he was calling it.
Oh, it's their smokehouse,
Smokehouse.
essentially.
And he let us go in there and he said, I guarantee on Wednesday you'll still smell like smokehouse. And I'm like, you're lying. He's like, no, I'm serious. Like, you'll go home, you'll shower, you'll still smell like it. I'll be damned if on Wednesday we still smelled like the smoke. We were in there for
Just from walking in, they weren't
Yeah.
smoking anything.
and
Just
we
from
showered.
Just
I mean, we
walking in.
showered multiple times, washed our hair, washed our clothes, and we're like, oh my god, he was right.
Yeah.
It
So
was so crazy.
the
we're-
water really opens it up.
Yeah, really.
It's really
it's
good.
significantly different when you throw that water in there.
So Brimstone and Andalusia Striker. Those are on the must buy
Well,
list
so
now.
what kind of
Brimstone
heat
for
do you-
sure, because I was actually really surprised that I was going to like
I'm
it
so
as much
glad.
as I did. But it's actually
Whenever you guys want to
good.
go, let me know. Because Magnolia, for any of the whiskey wives, Magnolia opens at 9, and they're like 3 blocks away from Balcones. Balcones
go,
opens
alright.
at 1. So
Okay, perfect.
Josh and I are very happy and very broke whenever we go up to work.
Yeah.
So this is, but just as an aside, this is Irish peat, by the way, that they smoke their own barley
So
on
it's like
site.
the Connemara, like that kind of.
They buy their own peat.
They buy their own. Okay.
If I remember correctly, he said
On Amazon.
on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get anything on Amazon.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't take much, right? Like they
Yeah.
don't have to burn mountains of peat to get the flavor in there, but they actually
Yeah.
smoke their own barley on site, both for this Revenant oak with the Irish peat, and then they do the hardwood smoked striker as well.
Okay. All right. And then now we're gonna try the. We've come to the end. We're gonna try the heavy hitter.
big
We're gonna
boy.
try the.
I'm just
Daddy.
gonna sit back.
Okay.
Garrison's a lot for me. That'll be a game. That'll be a day ender.
Would you want something else
No,
from the
I
table?
actually want some Mirador.
Oh, we didn't try the Mirador. Okay, I'll try the Mirador as well.
Yeah, sure.
Well, no,
I-
give
no,
it to
no,
me
I'll-
now.
I already have Garrison Cowboy in the glass. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
This is
we're
one
gonna-
thing Danny Whittington and I can relate on is our love for Mirador.
Mirador is fantastic, and I think from what I've heard rumblings of, that's actually getting added as a more permanent thing. This was the first,
staple.
yeah,
Yeah.
or maybe an
The
annual
core
release.
lineup, annual release, yeah.
Yeah, whereas this is the
So which one?
first
So
one.
describe the Mirador to me real quick while I'm pouring the
So
Garrison Brothers. That's one of the Balcones that I haven't had.
okay, so having had the regular single malt, this one obviously aged in American oak. They do European oak, French oak, etc.
Yeah.
But
All the oak.
Mirador is a refill cask scenario, right?
Okay.
So you see how it's much lighter, right? It doesn't have as it's not new oak. It's oak that used to hold other whiskey. Emptied that, put new malt whiskey in there.
Okay.
A significant portion of what makes up the Mirador is Balcones makes a spirit called Rumble,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And Rumble's made with Mission figs, turbinado sugar, and what else? Honey.
Honey.
Yeah.
I've got the cast strength version of that.
Oh,
It's-
Rumble cask is
It's fantastic.
It's
So
fantastic.
good. Yeah.
So they make rumble, age it in barrels, empty the rumble and bottle that, and then they refill it with malt whiskey.
Okay.
So you'll notice, if you're familiar with the flavor profile of rumble, being sort of rum-like, a little spicy, stuff like that, you'll notice that as a big influence on the flavor of the Mirador.
Okay. This is the 2017 Cowboy. So
Okay.
This is 137 proof. This is 68.5%. This is
It's not
the highest
around.
proof one that they've released so far.
Yeah.
The 2018 and then the one for this year. It used to be only odd years, but then they started doing every year. They amped it up a little bit to where now it's a yearly release for them.
I don't know, man. For
This
my
year
money,
they had 1,000 bottles at the distillery. They opened at 10, and at 8:30 in the morning, the cars stretched all the way to the paved road.
right?
Wasn't there like
Yes.
500 and
There were
some
500.
cars?
There was
Yeah.
500 cars.
And people drove
on.
in from Houston. I saw
Yeah.
like the aerial footage. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh.
there. Yeah,
Wow.
I guess. I think one of the people that worked there had like bought a drone.
Yeah.
And they were doing like aerial, like along the dirt
That's
road
crazy.
to get to the. And I was just like, I mean, it's whiskey. I mean, and I understand. We are lucky enough to where like I'm 45 minutes away from Garrison. I'm an hour away from Balcones. Like for me, it's just like a short drive, and I'm just like, I can go on Wednesday. Like, I can go now.
I
Like,
had read like people that lived in Houston that like worked the night shift would leave their night shift like left whenever they got off of work at like
Yeah,
6 a.m. drove the 3.5 hours and slept in their cars while they were waiting for Garrison to open,
Yeah.
Wow.
and then drove home. And I'm like, that is some dedication to
There's-
Texas whiskey and to Garrison
There's
Brothers.
something really fun though about like
Oh, I
going
love that property.
going to the event, right? Like whatever it
Yeah.
is, with Garrison, going to Balcones, etc. Like just going for the big thing and interacting
Yeah,
with the
if you
crowd.
go to
and
like
stuff.
the winter chicken dinner out at Garrison, it's a great time. All the community comes out. It's fun. If you go to Balcones when they're doing something, one of the market days, and it's right down the road, you're gonna have a blast. You know,
Yep.
Treaty Oak, they've got stuff, and then if you go to Treaty Oak, you can really go to Treaty Oak TX. You can go to Desert Door, which is so tall. You can go to all of them like in one day, and you can still wind up at Crowded Barrel for a happy hour.
And
Yeah.
Like all
Acapon.
4 of those are an Acapon.
And
yeah.
Acapon.
Yeah,
right
where,
there.
where we're headed right after this
Yeah.
is so
How's it, Cherry Mint?
the master distiller for Crowded Barrel, Deb Niemeyer. Her and her husband Dave own a brewery in Dripping Springs called Acapon, and they're doing a little charity deal today for dog and cat rescue, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so we're
So
gonna
you're out in Dripping Springs on Saturday.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I hear the Whittingtons are going to be there trying to convince Daniel to get a cat.
So for my money, I don't know. I'm sure with a lot of whiskey folk, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'd rather have this all day long than George T. Stagg.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah,
And that's just a personal preference
yeah,
thing.
No,
that-
that's not.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not being Texas whiskey people, whatever. But it's just there's more flavor. That's not George T. Stagg to me is all like you're in a fist fight.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're in a fist fight, and this is you're in a fist fight, but there's some complexity. There's some flavor behind it. There's some
Yeah, this is graham crackers.
yeah.
Sort of walnuts.
I didn't dislike it as much as I thought.
I'm glad we keep hearing this
Yeah,
today.
Well, I don't know if it's just because we're like, I don't even know how many
5 in.
shots in, but
Yeah.
maybe my palate is completely numb. But I actually
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love me some bourbon.
Yeah.
Well, and plus, the last time you had this was almost a year ago. You were
I have refined
you were
my
very
palate
young.
quite significantly. Yes.
Is sound class next?
Well,
Wedding presents and sound
next
class?
year, I would really like to do. So they fill up so quick.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
like you look and they're gone. It's like trying to get tickets to a Pearl Jam concert. You're like,
Yeah, you gotta
what-
jump
what
on
the
it as soon as it
What
goes
the
out.
hell? Yeah. So next year, I would really like to do someone there. You're going next month, right?
Yes, I am
Yeah,
taking
awesome.
taking level 1 sommelier class at Wizard Academy.
With and you know almost the entire class.
I do actually.
Yeah, so it's
it
gonna
wasn't
be a-
even on purpose, right? Like
Yeah,
I
you're
just
just through going to. I'm not there as frequently as y'all are. I probably go 1 or 2 Fridays a month. I try to get out there, but
Yeah.
I try to be home by the time she's home. So I'm there from like 4 to 6:30, and then and then in the fall I hate driving that road in the dark. Like I just
yeah.
the 2-lane undivided highway. From the 3 years I worked at Salt Lake, I hit 3 deer.
Oh wow.
I totaled 2 cars. There's a game preserve out there, an African wild game preserve, and I literally hit head on an African reindeer.
Oh.
And it just demolished my little 1994 Dodge Shadow. Just demolished.
Sure it did.
And I mean, and you know, the guy I was with was like, "Don't brake, just go harder." Because if you brake, he's gonna lean in, just gun it, and it'll fly over the roof of the roof. And sure enough, it did. So that's pretty much the only reason we survived. Because it was not good. But yeah, so I hate driving that road. But now spring up, I think you just need to pick one time. But now that it's daylight savings time, it doesn't get dark till 8. I'm likely to stay a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's a hike for us because we live in
Yeah,
North
'cause you live in
Austin.
North
Almost a
Austin,
route.
so-
Yeah, it's about an hour easily.
Yeah, and we're always trying to go down there at 5 p.m. on Friday.
Yeah.
And the moped tolling's a joke. We get a lot of money
Yeah,
to
no,
traffic.
just take the toll.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Like, we've done a lot of the whiskey tasting, and you've given us a lot of good information. But I'm just kind of curious, like, how did you even get into whiskey to begin with?
Sure. I spent several years trying random things like, I used to like Basil Hayden's and that's a good entry point. I'm not going to, say I'm too good for it now or anything like that, right? But Basil Hayden's is kind of a nice, friendly entry point for people.
That was our first ever podcast.
Oh, really? Basil Hayden?
Basil Hayden.
Yeah. That's a good entry point. That's the first one I can ever remember trying and really saying, "Oh, this is interesting. I kind of like this." Tried some stuff like Yamazaki 12 when you used to be able to find it in the store. Picked up, I think, a Macallan Sherry Oak, and we're talking over several years. I would randomly buy an odd bottle of whiskey, and it was actually Garrison Brothers specifically. I had tried some older bottling of it, and I was probably just not ready for it, not tasting it in the right way, just uninformed. And I tried it, and I thought it was just too aggressive, too hot. I didn't like it. This is the time where I would look for something that was 80 proof, specifically on the shelf, because I'm like, oh, Basil Hayden's was 80 proof, and I can drink that. Maybe that's what I need to look for.
Anything 80 proof is good.
Which is silly, but years and years ago, that was my mentality,
of
right?
Course.
Yeah.
So a couple of years passed by, and again, somebody brought some Garrison Brothers to a party or something like that, and I tried it, and I was like, this is awesome. And so that I fell in love with that, and then we learned, Garrison Brothers isn't that far away. Let's go visit. Oh, right by there's Andalusia. Let's go visit that. I'd already been out to Real Ale. Real Ale now makes whiskey under real spirits. Let's go check that out. Then she got into the fixer-upper craze when those guys were on TV, and she wanted to go up to Waco, right, and go up to Magnolia. So I heard
You need to meet my aunt because she's all about.
she's all about the Chip and Joanna Gaines thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So we went up to Waco and went to the Magnolia silos and did all the shopping there and whatnot. And I said, there's this place I've heard of as whiskey distillery just up the road called Balcones. I've never had it. Let's go check it out. So the first time I ever tried any Balcones whiskey at all was at the distillery. Went there and got a flight, and the one that captured my imagination was Brimstone, because I'm like, I have never tasted anything like this. I've had Lafroig and Ardbeg randomly here and there as people had offered me things, but Brimstone was so unique, and that was the first bottle of Balcones I ever bought, was Brimstone from the distillery tasting room there.
Wow.
Okay.
Excellent.
Right,
And then you
just
watch the
grew.
Whiskey Vault.
Yeah, randomly at a coworker's birthday party, I brought a bottle of something or other, I forget. But I think it was Garrison Brothers, actually. And he said, "Well, what are you drinking there?" And I told him, and he said, "Have you ever heard of the Austin Whiskey Vault?" I said, "Dude, I've been drinking beer and whiskey and stuff in this city for 10 years. I've never heard of a whiskey vault. What is what is this? Tell me more." So he said, go check it out on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. And so I did, and then I said, those guys aren't that far. Maybe I should go check it out. And Gretchen, actually, for an anniversary gift, she bought me a tasting class in the vault with Daniel, and that was the first time I met Daniel.
Yeah.
Was showing up there, and we did a little whiskey tasting and hung out for happy hour afterwards, and sort of went on from there.
So the way I got turned on to the guys was I do shipped on the side, and I delivered the groceries for Jeremy, the guy that was the master of ceremonies.
Oh yeah, Jeremy's hilarious.
We met 3 or 4 times, and
My succulent peach.
Yeah, me carrying the groceries in. I noticed that he had a room, and there was a bookcase, and it was full of whiskey. And we had the podcast, and I was like, "Oh, you're into whiskey too?" He was like, "Yeah." Well, Daniel's dad was there.
Okay, Brad. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had just gotten a bottle of Ardbeg Grooves, and Jeremy had said he wanted to try it. So I had known him, and he had already turned me on to the whiskey vault. And I'd been watching the guys, but I didn't know Brad was Daniel's dad. So Jeremy invited me, and he was like, "Do you have any more stops?" And I was like, "You're my last delivery for the day." And he was like, "Well, grab your bottle of Grooves and come in the study." And so I met, and then I didn't have tickets to the opening.
Oh, the launch party?
The launch party.
Yeah.
Actually, Jeremy took me and her as his guest.
Oh, cool.
That's how we got to go.
Yeah.
So, but turns out that I had recognized him when I started watching the videos. Me and Rex went to high school together.
Really?
I was a senior. He was a freshman. Rex took.
Was he that crazy back then?
No, he was a little bit more reserved. I mean, he was crazy, but it turns out that Rex took my next door neighbor, Anne, who I've known since she was 5. That was his prom date.
Wow.
So it's a super small world, like, and we just
That's cool, man.
That's how we knew one another. So
right on.
yeah, it turns out that I've known those guys for a long time.
Yeah.
Not Daniel, but I've known Rex for 20 years.
That's awesome.
So that's how I got turned on to Crowded Barrel and all those guys.
And honestly, you say like it was Rex crazy back then. Like in my experience, Rex
He has this online mooch persona.
he plays crazy on camera for fun.
When you meet Rex in person, he's the most humble, down to earth. Give you his shirt off his back.
He's kind of shy,
Yeah.
actually.
Very shy.
Yeah.
Both Daniel and Rex are way more introverted than they lead on to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Daniel really prefers to be alone in the woods with just his thoughts in a book and some whiskey if he can be, and a guitar to strum.
Yep.
That's where he's happiest.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, of course, Wizard Academy, we want to make money. We're here, so let's play it up. And Daniel, if you get him in the right mood, he's very talkative and very gregarious. And,
Right, and Daniel's used to he's a musician forever.
Yeah, being
so
on stage performing, he knows what to do and when to do it, and
yeah, he can
how much to pour it on, and
Exactly. So we just poured a little bit of this Balcones Mirador.
I'm going to try that next.
Okay, I don't want to like color your opinions. I want tell me what you think without me saying much.
Well, me being a huge fan of the Cast Strength Rumble, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to like it.
Yeah.
It's a lot softer than all of the other.
Yeah, we almost did this sort of in reverse order.
Yeah.
This is actually the softer one.
Even though this is
But-
108, 109 proof, this is...
Yeah, this is definitely the softer one. I have some right. I like it, but you know what? To be perfectly honest, I almost wish it had a little bit more flavor, kind of like the Brimstone.
Sure.
This is a little bit tame, and I guess maybe because, like you said, we kind of did it backwards, and I got this, rough taste in my mouth from Garrison Brothers, but it almost seems a little bland to me.
It does. It's really kind of floral.
It's very
Floral,
floral,
yes.
and it's very
I'm almost
sweet.
getting like a ginger snappy kind of cookie kind of.
It reminds me of cinnamon, like buttered cinnamon toast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
And so Balcones is notorious for high proof, dense flavor, even a bit aggressive. I mean, stuff like Brimstone, right? There's a lot going on, and this was I think a great example of exhibiting what kind of range they have, right?
This is nothing like that. The other two Balcones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's showing like, hey, we're not just a one trick pony of like in your face high proof stuff.
We can do a wide variety.
Yeah.
This is almost like.
Well, on the very back of the bottle, it specifically says understated inspiration, and I think that's a really good way to describe it. It's very understated.
Yep.
It's very delicate. I might have had a different opinion had we tried this first.
If I told you
You
this
know.
was a Highland Scotch, would you believe me?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, difference of opinion.
I would.
Yeah. I was actually just thinking about it. I'm like, it almost reminds me of which Game of Thrones Scotch did we try last time?
Oh, I have to go back and look. I can't remember. That was
There's one of Royal Lochnar, I think.
Oh, the Royal Lochnagar, yeah.
I think this really reminds me of one of those like Highland floral scotches.
Yeah,
it really does.
Because it's done in that style, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing some different stuff, like I said, with the rumble casks, but, you know, you're talking about single malt whiskey and all about, I don't know if you know this or not, but all Balcones single malts are made with Golden Promise barley.
Yes, Golden Promise barley, yes.
Which is like not the cheapest barley you can find.
Yeah.
And they use that specifically for the flavor profile and everything. But so that's that single malt, but instead of that more woody, you know, new American oak, new European oak flavors, you get those refill casks, and it's evident even just in the color, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No, sorry, not the Royal Lock, the Dalwhinnie.
Dalwhinnie, okay.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
Oh, the winter
I had to go look through my notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of floral aroma, flowers, apples a little bit. Not so much the fruit on this one, but definitely the floral aromas to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think out of all three, the Mirador is probably my second favorite. I'm still really surprised that I like the Brimstone as much as I did. That one is actually
I need
really,
to take a flask
really
of that. Must be
good.
go get some barbecue.
It's fantastic.
You know, sometimes, honestly, if I had to put these in an order for folks to try, I'd have put Brimstone last probably because there's definitely been times where I've been, drinking whiskey and sampling whiskey for people, and I put Brimstone last, and then the next morning I get up. And I've like taken a shower, brushed my teeth, everything, and like the first thing I think upon waking up is, oh, it still tastes a little bit like Brimstone.
No, we wake up the next morning and we're like,
There's that
oh,
smoke.
there's that smoke. Like there's like you drink something like lore or something like that. So you wake up and you're like, did I sleep by a campfire? Like what is this? Especially if you leave your glass like on the nightstand and you smell it the next morning. Yeah, it's very.
Yeah.
It's very, very strong.
Josh isn't allowed to bring whiskey to bed.
So here's a cool.
Bad things happen. Whiskey's brought to bed.
Here's a cool trick. You like Irish whiskey?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we
Irish
had-
whiskey fans?
Yeah.
Last week's was nothing but Irish whiskey.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
we did an Irish whiskey flight.
For St. Patrick's.
Try this, right? Pour yourself a regular pour of Irish whiskey,
Okay.
and then just 3 drops of Brimstone in there.
Okay.
Oh, yes. I've got green, yellow, red. I've got Tullamore. I've got the entire Tullamore Dew lineup.
I'd probably do it like with an Irish whiskey that you're like, this is okay, but it's not like a green spot or a red
It's like a
breast.
Jameson.
Yeah,
So
Jameson.
for Marissa, that would be I think a proper 12 was what.
Proper 12. Yeah.
Yeah, her
You have to have some flavor there to
her
begin
palate-
with, maybe.
Her palate betrayed her last week.
Oh, it totally betrayed
we
me.
ranked them 1 to 7, and she put
Blind
proper 12.
testing. Let blind taste testing.
Proper
Let
12
me
came out.
preface by
Number 1.
saying that. It was blind.
Yeah, it was blind. So.
I couldn't do a blind tasting. I just host them. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Kudos to you for even trying to drink them. I would.
Yeah, but my
fail.
palate definitely betrayed me last week. But
We are right under an hour.
Yeah, we'll do that off.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So, Josh and Gretchen, tell them where they can find you.
So we are on YouTube as Cask Strength with our good Canadian buddies Vito and Brad.
The Whiskey Pixie
The
and
whiskey,
the Demigod.
The Whiskey Pixie and the OG Demigod. There've been.
I'm sorry, the OG Demigod.
Yeah,
Sorry, Brad.
Brad was the first. So, yeah, YouTube at Cask Strength. We have a Facebook page that's facebook.com/the Cask Strength.
Yes.
And
Email. You can email us
email
anytime.
Josh at caststrengthshow.com.
Gretchen at castdrinkshow.com. And don't forget the Texas Whiskey Trail. TexasWhiskeyTrail.com.
Yep.
yeah,
Texas Whiskey Festival is coming up.
There looks like they're also on Facebook at Texas Whiskey Trail.
Yep, at Texas Whiskey Trail, and then there's also a separate, associated site for Texas Whiskey Association. So
And I'll give a shout out to the First Lady of Texas Whiskey, Sarah Whelan.
Sarah Whelan.
Yeah.
Just
Who we
love,
met at the gathering.
Yeah.
love Sarah as a whiskey
Yeah.
wife. I love
Very,
Sarah.
very nice
So
lady.
she's got First Lady of Texas Whiskey. I hope that someday that she will crown me something in her court. Sarah, if you're listening, I look good in a crown. I already have it. I'm ready to see the
You got a
title.
sash?
yeah,
Down, we're ready.
all these titles are being spread around,
Yeah.
like First Lady of, Mother of,
Yeah.
I think maybe Duchess.
I'm serious. I love Kate. So.
Yeah. There you go. All right.
And then Austin, hopefully we'll start getting Austin meetups ready to go for the whiskey
Yeah,
tribe.
so
We're
if you
waiting
are
to
part
hear.
of the Crowded Barrel and the Whiskey Tribe, and the Whiskey Vault, just know that Josh has been anointed the Bastard of Ceremonies.
The Bastard of Ceremonies.
And Gretchen is his spirit guide, and I think they are going to appoint me as their scribe.
Yep.
So we will all be in cahoots, and luckily we'll get the awesome meetups. It's just one of those things where we really, really want to do it the right way, and we want to make sure that it's a good situation for everybody. Everybody has a good time. Nobody gets in trouble. We got to follow the law. Texas is tricky. So you guys hang tight with us. We promise they're coming. We know you've been waiting a long time.
Yeah, the biggest thing is like finding an acceptable venue that works for
because
everybody.
you can't use a bar or a restaurant because that violates TABC. So you really have to, and we don't want to have it in anybody's house.
Right.
So it's tricky to find the proper venue. I just say everybody comes to Crowded Barrel, but that's just me.
There was a lot. We were told that there were a lot of Ubers.
Well, I think also part of the goal is that Rex and Daniel want to make those not so much about them and more about the community that's in your local area, right? So you guys share whiskey between each other, and
and one of the rules is the first time everybody drinks for free. The second time you pay a small nominal fee. Daniel and Rex were really, really big on communicating to Josh, Gretchen, and I. None of that money goes to them.
Right.
No, it's all to the local group.
Daniel has like 5 jobs. Rex has 3. They don't want they have their own flow of money and how they make money. They don't want us to contribute to them a dime. And they've actually asked, like, don't donate any more whiskey to us. Like, save it and take it to your local meetups.
Yeah, it's about encouraging the community thing.
If we need to buy whiskey for the vault, we have a Patreon for that. We have so many other ways for us to buy whiskey if we want a whiskey we want to review in the vault. We don't need any more donations. We have over 2,200 whiskeys in the vault.
We have,
and you guys can do private tastings at the Wizard Academy. They start as little as, $50-$60 a person, go all the way up to 500. And if you do the 500, you can pick any 5 whiskeys you want in the vault. You can raid the lock cabinet.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard of there being like 1 pour left of a whiskey, and somebody picked it, and they'll pour it.
And then also, what's interesting that they advertise is that once you take a class, then you're alumni. So if you take a $200 class, then you're alumni, and so all of a sudden your $4,000 song class is now $2,000.
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep in mind too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Wizard Academy has a ton of great courses.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you don't want to take Psalm, there are a myriad of awesome courses that you can take out there.
All kinds of business development and marketing, and that's
Rex
really the whole deal.
I hear
is
Rex
marketing.
is going to start doing possibly some digital media classes.
So I've heard.
We'll see. It will be awesome for those of us that are trying to get into
Rex's
that world.
dad, Roy, is probably one of, if not the greatest single advertising mind in the world. The man is just a myriad. If you just go with a bottle of whiskey or you take a bottle of wine and you pour him a glass, your entire night is set. You can just listen to him talk.
Oh yeah, Roy is
just a myriad of like stories that'll just like drop your jaw, and you're just like, how have you led this life? Like way out in the Texas Hill Country. It's like, but yeah, he's an awesome guy.
He's a brilliant and engaging person, and he's like the type of guy when you walk into the room, everybody's focused on him.
Yeah.
Right.
He doesn't even try.
No,
he just walks in with his bottle of wine and his 3 little plastic cups, and he's like starts pouring, and then he'll offer you some, and then you're just kind of there.
Roy's just charismatic and like magnetic in that way.
I remember the first time I met him, I felt like it was like almost meeting like royalty, because you'd always heard of Roy, and he was just this amazing figure, kind of this god over this beautiful property, and then to meet him, he's just a regular guy.
And
he's just amazing. I love Roy.
There's no arrogance or anything there. He just is that kind of guy that his vibe makes people want to be around him and pay attention and learn from him.
I wish it didn't take me a year to figure out that Rex was his son, but it was a little embarrassing moment for a few minutes.
Okay.
That makes much more sense.
That's how you came to work here.
I'm going to go over here in this corner.
Williams. Okay.
The studio and all that. So. Mike, tell them where you can find us.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Cask Mates Podcast, on Twitter at Cask Mates Pod, or our website, caskmatespodcast.com.
Right.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us.
Parting glass today. Texas forever.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Forever.
Cheers.